an equation that we solved before. Next step, we'll add 2 on both sides. 5x equals 13 plus 2 would be 15. And last step, divide by 5. And we have our answer, x equals 3. Second equation and last equation for the section. 4p minus 10 equals p plus 3p minus 2p. Looking at this equation, we have many variables. On the right hand side, we have 3 variables or 3 like terms. We can actually combine all these together. So the 4p minus 10 would stay the same. And the p, which we can make a 1p if you want. 1p plus 3p would be 4p. And 4p minus 2p would be 2p. So combining like terms, we have 2p on the right hand side. Next step, we want to put the variables on the left, is what we can normally do. On this problem, if you want to, you can put them on the right to make it a little bit easier. That way the negative 10 stays on the left hand side, and 2p minus 4p would be negative 2p. Different signs you subtract. 4 is bigger, so it'll stay negative. And last step, we can divide by negative 2. 5 equals p, or you can rewrite it p equals 5. One phone company charges $16.95 per month and 5 cents per text message. Another company charges $22.95 per month and 2 cents per text message. For what number of text messages would the plans be the same? To solve this problem, let's write an equation, and for the plans to be the same, we can set the plans equal and then solve for the number of text messages that they'll be equal for. The first phone company charges $16.95 per month. To that, we're going to add the text messages. Text messages are 5 cents per message. So it's 5 cents for each message. If we use the variable x times 5 cents would be the charge for text messages. Equals, because we want it to equal or be the same amount of the second company. The second company is $22.95 per month, plus the text messages. For the second company is 2 cents per message. And again, x is our number of text messages, so 2 cents times x will tell us how much the additional cost is for text messages. Solving this equation, we can find out x and find out when the plans would be the same. First step, we can subtract 0.02x on both sides. 16.95 would stay the same. Subtracting the decimals, 5 minus 2 would be 3. 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. The decimal comes straight down. And 5 minus 2, the 5 is bigger, so this would be positive 0.03x equals 22.95. Solving from here to isolate x or get x by itself, we can subtract 16.95 on both sides. So 0.03x equals, subtracting 5 minus 5 is 0, 9 minus 9 is 0, and 2 minus 6, we can borrow from the x number, so we have 12 minus 6 and 1 minus 1. So 22.95 minus 16.95 is 6.00, or if you ignore the zeros, it would be 6. Last step, we have 0.03x. To get rid of the decimal in front of x, we can divide by that same decimal. And our final answer, x equals, we can do long division for 6 divided by 0.03. The 6 again would go inside. 0.03 is the number we're dividing by. This time we'll move the decimal 2 times, so it goes on the right side of the 3. If we move the decimal 2 times on the outside, the decimal also goes twice on the inside, and we can fill in zeros for a placeholder. So now we have 3 into 600. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 2 times 3 would be 6. Subtracting those is 0. We still have 2 numbers though we have to divide by. 3 into 0 would be 0. And last number we bring down, 3 into 0 would also be 0. So the final answer, 200, x equals 200, which again means for these plans, 200 text messages would make the plans the same amount. Title of the first section today is Review, Solving Equations. First equation, 18x minus 5 equals 3 in parentheses 5x minus 2. Solve this equation. We can first get rid of the parentheses. The 3 outside we can distribute or multiply inside. 18x minus 5 would stay the same, equals 3 times 5 would be 15x. 3 times a negative 2 would be negative 6 or minus 6. Solving from here, we can put all the variables on one side. We can subtract 15x. 18x minus 15x would be 3x minus 5 equals negative 6. Adding 5 to both sides. 3x equals negative 6 plus 5 would be negative 1. Different signs will subtract. The 6 is bigger, so it's negative. And last step, divide by 3. X equals, we'll have the fraction negative 1/3. Second equation and last equation for the section. 5m minus 2 inside parentheses m plus 2 equals negative in parentheses 2m plus 15. This equation we have 2 sets of parentheses. Again, anytime you have a number or a negative outside the parentheses, we can distribute that to get rid of the parentheses. 5m would stay the same. Negative 2 times m would be negative 2m. And negative 2 times 2 would be negative 4. On the right hand side, negative 2m would be negative 2m, and negative plus 15 would be minus 15. Next step, we have like terms on the left hand side. Like terms again are the same variable with the same exponent. 5m minus 2m would be 3m minus 4 equals negative 2m minus 15. With variables on the left and right side, we can move all the variables to one side by adding 2m to both sides. 3m plus 2m would be 5m minus 4 equals negative 15. Adding 4 to both sides. 5m equals negative 15 plus 4 would be negative 11. Different signs, subtract. 15 is bigger, so we have negative for the answer. And last step, divide by 5. So m equals, you can leave your answer in fraction form as long as it's reduced, negative 11 over 5. Or if you want to, you can do a mixed number. 5 goes into 11 two times. There's 1 left over, so that would be 2 1/5. The negative stays on there, so that would be negative 2 1/5. Title of the last section today is Equations with no solution or identity. This question will have equations, which when we solve will either have no solution, which means no number works, or identity, which means every number works. First equation is 6x plus 1 equals 6x minus 8. Solving this equation, we have variables on both sides. Combine the variables, we can subtract 6x. 6x minus 6x would cancel. The 1 would come down. 6x minus 6x also cancels, and the negative 8 comes down. In this case, when all the variables cancel out and you're left with two numbers, we have 1 equals negative 8, which is a false statement. If all the variables cancel out and you're left with a false statement, this would be no solution. Second equation and last equation for the section, 3, and then parentheses x minus 4 equals 3x minus 12. Solving this one, we can first get rid of the parentheses by distributing or multiplying to 3. 3 times x would be 3x, and 3 times negative 4 would be negative 12, equals 3x minus 12. If you look at both sides of the equation, they're both exactly the same. If you continue to solve, you can subtract 3x on both sides. 3x minus 3x would cancel. Negative 12. 3x minus 3x also cancels, and negative 12 comes down. In this case, the variables cancel out, and we're left with a true statement. Negative 12 does equal negative 12. If it is a true statement, the answer would be identity, which again means every number works for this equation. The length of a rectangle is 6 inches more than its width. The perimeter of the rectangle is 24 inches. What is the dimensions of the rectangle? To solve this question, since it's about a rectangle, we can draw a rectangle. The first part of the sentence says the length of a rectangle is 6 inches more than its width. What we can do is put x on one side of the rectangle, since we do not know the width of the rectangle, but the length of the rectangle is 6 inches more than the width, or 6 inches more than x. In terms of x, that would be x plus 6. If x is on the left side of the rectangle, the right side, which is an equal side, is also x. And if the top length is x plus 6, then the bottom length is also x plus 6. The next sentence says the perimeter of the rectangle is 24 inches. The perimeter is the distance around, or the sum of all four sides of a rectangle. So if we add up all four sides, we have two x's, x plus x, and we also have x plus 6 and x plus 6. So we'll add x plus 6 and plus another x plus 6. That equals the perimeter, which in the problem is equal to 24. If we combine like terms, x plus x plus x plus x, that's 4x, and 6 plus 6 would be 12, equals 24. Solving, we can subtract 12 on both sides. So 4x equals 24 minus 12 will be 12. And dividing by 4, we'll have x equals 3. So one side of the rectangle, in this case the width, is equal to 6, is equal to 3. And the other side, if we plug it back in, x plus 6 or 3 plus 6, the other side would be 9. So two sides of the rectangle are 3 and 9. The sum of three consecutive integers is 147. Find the integers. In this problem, we're going to have the sum of three numbers, so adding three numbers together. Those numbers are consecutive integers. Consecutive meaning they're right next to each other, and integers meaning they're whole numbers, positive or negative, but they cannot be decimals or fractions. To solve this question, we can write an equation. If we let x be the first integer that we don't know but we can solve for, the next consecutive integer means it's the next number after x. In terms of x, to find the next number, that can be x plus 1. So if x is the first integer, the next integer after x is x plus 1. And since we have three numbers, we'll add the third number to it. The next integer after that would be x. and we'll add 2 to it. So x is the first integer, adding 1 is the next integer, and adding 2 is the last integer. The sum of all those equals 147. Solving, we can combine like terms. X plus x plus x would be 3x, and plus 1 plus 2 would be plus 3, equals 147. Solving, we can subtract 3 on both sides. So 3x equals 147 minus 3 would be 144. And last step, divide by 3. 144 divided by 3, we can do long division. 144 on the inside divided by 3 on the outside. 3 into 14 goes 4 times. 4 times 3 would be 12. Subtract, bring down to 4. 3 into 24 would be 8. So our first number, 48, is the first integer. The next consecutive integer, the number after 48, is 49. And the third integer, the number after 49, would be 50. So the 3 consecutive integers that add up to 147 is 48, 49, and 50. Find 3 consecutive even integers that sum to 24. We can use x to represent the first even integer. Since we're doing the sum, we'll add to that the next even integer. If x is a even integer, the next even integer is 2 numbers above that, or x plus 2. So the first even integer is x, the second number, next even integer is x plus 2, and the third number past that, in terms of x, the second consecutive even integer would be 4 numbers above that, so it would be plus 4. And the sum would be 24. Solving this equation, x plus x plus x would be 3x, 2 plus 4 would be 6, equals 24. Solving from here, we can subtract 6 on both sides. So 3x equals 18. Dividing by 3. And we'll have our first answer, 18 divided by 3 would be 6. To find the next even integer after 6, we can add 2 to that, which would be 8. And to find the third number, we can add 2 to that, which would be 10. So the 3 consecutive even integers that add to 24 is 6, 8, and 10. Find 3 consecutive odd integers that sum to 51. Again, if we let x be the first odd integer, we can add to that the next odd integer. If x is an odd integer, the next odd integer after that is 2 numbers bigger, or x plus 2. And the third consecutive odd integer in terms of x would be x plus 4. Equals 51. Solving from here, x plus x plus x would be 3x, and 2 plus 4 would be 6, equals 51. Subtracting 6 on both sides, 3x equals 45. Dividing by 3, our first number would be 15. The next consecutive odd number after 15 would be 17, and after 17 would be 19. So the three consecutive odd integers that add to 51 is 15, 17, and 19. Title of the first section today is Graphing. In this section, we'll graph points on a xy axis. The first point we'll graph, the letter A, is the point 1, 2. Letter B is the point -3, 4. Letter C is the point 0, -5. And last point D is 3, 0. To graph these points on the xy axis, we can first draw a xy axis. If you label this, the x-axis is the horizontal or line that goes left and right. The y-axis is the line that goes vertical up and down. Looking at the points we're graphing, the biggest number away from 0 is -5. So we can go 5 spots in each direction, so our graph will be big enough to graph all the points. And before we graph, points are always x, y. So the first number that's represented is always the x, the number that goes on the x-axis, and the second number is always the number that goes on the y-axis. So looking at the first point, 1, 2, x is equal to 1, which would be here. Y is equal to 2, which is 2 spots up. And where they meet, that's our first point that we can label for point A at 1, 2. Second point, -3, 4. -3 goes in the left direction for x, and +4 would go 4 spots up. And we can label that B for point B. The third point, 0, -5. If x is 0, it stays in the middle, and -5 means we'll go 5 spots down. And we can label that point C. And last point, 3, 0. 3 would be 3 spots to the right. 0 for y value means it stays on the line and doesn't go up or down. And that would be point D and the graph for the section. Title of the last section today is titled Quadrants. If you draw a xy axis graph, and you can label the x-axis, the one that goes left and right, and the y-axis is the axis that goes straight up and down or vertical. There are 4 quadrants, or 4 sections of the graph. The top right quadrant is quadrant 1. We'll use Roman numeral 1 to represent that. Going counterclockwise, the next quadrant in the top left-hand corner is quadrant 2, and we'll use Roman numeral 2 for that quadrant.